New at 6, sold-out parties, exclusive access, and big donations to nonprofits. If you've heard the pitch from CityGuru and the site's owner, you're not alone.
You may have even gone to some of Drew Morrison's events, but the reality uncovered by the Como News investigators is that the charities got shortchanged and the vendors went unpaid.
Como investigator John Humbert is here now. And John, all this money went somewhere.
Yeah, it sure did. In a dozen interviews with sources and a mountain of court documents, a lot of fingers are pointing to CityGuru owner Drew Morrison.
I thought his events were so cool.
Beautiful people, everyone dressed to the nines.
Slick promotions, hobnobbing parties, and red carpet fashion were the calling card of Morrison and CityGuru.
Well, that's just what you get just because they want to give it to you.
CityGuru offered subscriptions, granting access to special events, restaurants, and more. Many times, CityGuru proudly said they were parties with a cause, with donations going to charities. But a company insider and multiple nonprofits say Morrison produced broken promises and empty bank accounts.
It's just like delay after delay after delay after delay.
Take, for example, Blood, Booze, and Boobs, a viewing party of the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight in May with, quote, all proceeds going to Tara Martin's Pink Jean Foundation.
There's hors d'oeuvres and cocktails and people working the event.
Pink Jean supports young women dealing with cancer. Women like Martin, diagnosed 2 years ago with stage 3 breast cancer.
It's finally to the stages where I'm rebuilding, getting back to normal life and not having to go to a doctor's appointment every day.
Lots of high-priced tickets were sold in late April. Martin's charity has gotten nothing. 5 months later, she and donors feel duped.
It was a complete ripoff for them, to be honest.
It baffles my mind.
Jamie June, a contributor to Como 4's Seattle Refined show, says Morrison hired her to help host CityGuru's lavish, sold-out events. She and others say they were getting paid in excuses.
And I had already said it's been a month, but he said, oh, you know, there's all these like bills that come up after an event. And I said, you know, I'm one of them. I mean, he owed me for many different events.
We put so much work into it.
Same story for other vendors. When CityGuru canceled an event at the last minute last September, a letdown for model Bernard Butler, who volunteered and walked the runway for an event that did happen.
I've worked hard for who I am. I've gone through a lot. So when something like this happens and I hear about it, it's very disappointing.
After hours on the phone and evasive answers, Morrison gave us a statement saying these were honest mistakes and that we learned the hard way. He also called CityGuru one of the top event companies in Seattle, yet his website has been down for weeks. Morrison also claimed, I've gone 5 years without a salary to put this company first, although he couldn't provide any proof of that.
When somebody won't account for where money went and how it was spent, you have a problem.
Attorney Bruce Danielson says CityGuru's woes shouldn't be a surprise because of Morrison's past and previous company. He helped file a lawsuit on behalf of Texan investor Gary Wolver.
I paid a very high price in that school of hard knocks, all because I trusted a man called Drew Morrison.
In 2010, Wolver gave around $500,000 to Morrison to start a now-defunct foreclosure flipping business in Arizona.
He's like an onion. Every layer you peel away, there's another layer. A little bit more stinky and rottener than the one before it.
That lawsuit finally got some answers of where the money went.
Victoria's Secret, a tire shop, a coffee shop, a movie theater, Petco.
Danielson accused Morrison of using investor money on tanning salons, gun shops, car mechanics, fine dining, shopping sprees, the Lover adult store, and a Las Vegas nightclub.
The list goes on and on and on.
Wolver claims Morrison is the only person who had access to the accounts. Those numbers show big transfers from the business to Morrison's personal account for spending on exotic fish, sports betting, and yes, more adult stores.
And he has failed to produce any documents that show that he actually spent any money on real estate.
And you've asked.
I have asked. It's been ordered by the court.
The records show Morrison drained accounts quickly and overdrafted multiple times. Morrison, meanwhile, has gone quiet. His landlord told us he booted him because of an estimated $6,000 in unpaid rent. Unopened court orders were still in the mail slot. After months in court, the judge granted Wolver a default judgment in August for a total of more than $970,000. Wolver doesn't expect anyone, business investors or charities, charities to ever see any money.
I lost my house. I was forced to file bankruptcy.
This is a very unfortunate situation, and I truly hope other charities know what is going on.
I mean, it's pretty sickening, to be honest.
Now, Morrison has refused multiple offers to sit down with us and explain all of this, but with CityGuru offline and no new social media posts for weeks, it's unclear if Drew Morrison will plan a party anytime soon.
It's astounding. Wow. How has he not been arrested, John?
Well, that's one of the things that the attorney Bruce Danielson talked to us about, is that according to Washington state statutes, there is a provision that when you're dealing with this amount of money, $970,000 and more, over all of those lawyers' fees and everything else, he actually is required to notify the authorities. We know that some of them tonight are watching this report.
Wow. John, thank you.
A failed businessman who is accused of scamming investors out of more than $1 million broke his silence to the Como investigators.
Drew Morrison of the event company CityGuru.com lost lawsuits, broke promises to charities, and is now under investigation by the state of Washington.
Morrison sat down with Como's John Humbert for nearly 2 hours to set the record straight. He may have raised more questions in the process.
You know, I'm not a quitter. And I am obscenely stubborn.
Contrite yet combative, apologetic while argumentative. Drew Morrison is a contradiction, a charming man with unshakable problems.
It baffles my mind.
It's very disappointing.
Complete ripoff for them, to be honest.
In September, we revealed Morrison's failed payment to a breast cancer charity, giving them $0 despite promising the proceeds of all sales.
I don't remember one where it said all proceeds, but if it did, as I said, then that's a mistake then.
Morrison bristled at the suggestion partygoers were duped and said expenses had to be paid before charities. The event was in May. You promised end of July, $1,500. And still nothing as of late November.
Yeah, I mean, you know, things definitely did change from then. Valet, appetizers, drinks.
Morrison says CityGuru wasn't able to stay afloat and shut down. A number of investors bought shares in the now defunct company. Morrison couldn't explain what happens next and if they'll be paid back. The Washington State Department of Financial Institutions, which looks into securities fraud, recently launched an investigation into CityGuru. Morrison had no knowledge of that, but did address the problems with his previous company, Path Investments.
It's just one of those that it's a company that kind of went somewhere and then just didn't.
The Arizona-based foreclosure business went belly up too.
All because I trusted a man called Drew Morrison.
Investor Gary Wooliver won a lawsuit alleging Morrison spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on himself instead of the business. How many homes did you end up purchasing or flipping?
I don't know. Under Path, I really don't know.
Records from the lawsuit expose wild charges by Morrison, who admitted he was the only one with access to Path's business accounts.
Can we track what pennies is whose and what it went to? No, we can't. And that's also why...
that's what bank statements literally are for.
Well, you know, and if the things he accused me of were so black and white, then it wouldn't have taken him so long to get to where they're at. And
he didn't have access to the accounts, Drew.
Well,
he had to sue you in order to see where you spent his money.
And again, if his accusations had been so black and white and those statements would have shown that, I think it would have been a completely different story in his lawsuit.
But you lost that lawsuit.
Yeah, I lost it by default.
At heart of the suit were promissory notes Morrison signed but never paid, calling the deal more personal than paperwork. Well, a notarized promissory note is far different than a handshake.
Look at it black and white. Again, you can ignore the relationship that him and I have had, or you can't.
Well, no, we have to focus on the law.
Okay, that's fine. Yes. You know what, John? Yes.
There were multiple contempt orders for Morrison's refusal to hand over records, and he didn't even show up for a number of hearings.
I didn't get my day in court.
Say again?
I didn't get my day in court. So, you know, and I believe I lost on some technicalities because, you know, I'm not an attorney. I think there's truth and there's process, and maybe you're a very black and white person. Fine.
Well, I think the court is black and white, not me.
That doesn't mean that they don't understand truth. Doesn't mean they got it right.
In June, Morrison lost another lawsuit by default in Arizona. He didn't show when a different PATH investor accused him of pocketing a $55,000 loan. All told, Morrison owes nearly $1.5 million in court judgments and fees. For his investors, we did get one important answer.
I kind of thought that it wasn't my fault, but, you know, when I look back at it...
Whose fault was it?
It's mine.
John Humbert, Como Investigators.
The state financial division couldn't reveal much about its current investigation, and Morrison was clear that despite the court's ruling, he doesn't think he owes Gary Wolliver a cent.